It is my delight to begin this hour with the incredible Jyoti Ma. Every time I get to be in her presence, I feel at ease. I feel in the presence of an elder. I like love just kind of blossoms. I feel like the giddy smile, on me. So it's with extra like delight that I get to share her with all of you. And some of you have gotten to meet her. She was part of our Sacred Storytelling Summit. And if you haven't gotten to know her yet, I'm just going to do a brief introduction. GOT is an internationally renowned spiritual teacher. She is a devoted her life to bringing unity to the planet by facilitating the development of alliances between individuals who are guardians of indigenous culture and traditional medicine ways. Isn't that a great sentence? I want to read that again because it is so beautiful. She's devoted her life to the bringing unity to the planet by facilitating the development of alliances between individuals who are the guardians of indigenous culture and traditional medicine ways. Through this work, collaborative relationships with organizations that are focused on economic, social, and environmental solutions have developed creativity addressing the global challenges of our time. Oh, and she carries some big stories, and she's bold in her release of the old stories and the caring of which knowing which ones to come bring in. And I'm going to bring the spotlight to you, and I'll share this with you. Hold on. Dun, 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 dun. So without further ado, GOT, I love to begin with, just kind of the beginning, like a little bit of your life journey. What brought you to the path of unity, which is what you say, this peace, and also like, being a guardian of those who are really keeping indigenous practices alive and well. And we'd love to hear a little bit of your life story.
Well, I'd like to start by saying that some of my elders have said to me that there's a story stalking each and every one of us. And when our consciousness is ripe enough to open to the next level of its awareness, then and only then does that story pounce and swallow you. And that's what happened to me. So I can witness it as a truth. Because I'm now starting my 77th year walk around the sun. And if I had a thought that I was going to be walking this path that I have and where the path took me, I would have never guessed it. It wasn't in my awareness. It wasn't in my thinking. It wasn't something I had aspirations for. It truly did come and swallow me up. And it started through the Kundalini awakening that took 13 years to unfold in my system. It took me by bringing me an awareness that we needed to start a spiritual intentional community. And then the next part of this story pounced. And up my 14-mile logger road where we had acquired some to caretake a major, beautiful, holy mountain we called Crystal Mountain in the Sierra foothills near Yosemite. Um, these elders found their way up our road to initiate myself and many others in our community and our community at large into a way of life that is based on the original principles of Mother Law. And those original principles are heart and collaboration, reciprocity, tolerance, unity, and all life is sacred. And they came bringing lines of traditional medicine ways up to us to pass some of those ways on to us, which meant we had to go through very strong initiations and trainings and teachings that would last each line over many years. And as that happened, we began to embody that original way of life. That then once we embody it again, we've returned to a way of life and we start to receive and we flow with the instruction of nature and its intelligence. We let go of our need to try to construct something or to negotiate with something. are to try to get something. You know, we step out of that kind of Western colonized thinking, and we come to the place where we start to enter into a deep relationship with the unknown and a deep rooted faith in that the divine will bring everything we need in the moment of present time that we stand. And so that my community is now going on 4 decades old, and it's grown itself globally. Our community, another large part of our community lives outside of Prague, and it'll be 26 years old this year. So we are a community that came together really out of innocence and devotion. We really didn't know what we were doing, and still maybe don't, if we were honest. But we have come to have such deep trust in this way of life, and we totally have embraced and embodied a trust that allows for nature and her intelligence to guide each and every one of our steps. And it has developed different programs and initiatives through our community over all these years that have helped in bringing the teachings of the Mother and the Divine to help waken people, to help cultivate that wakefulness and keep yourself awake. It has cultivated compassion and kindness, because we know waking up is messy. And when it is, we wanted to be kind with each other and hold each other through the messy moments, and hold each other as a community when it too had to go through its own awakening process as a collective, you see. So now we're standing here poised after working all these years with our Indigenous relatives. We're fully Indigenous led. And we work very closely with the Kagaba Nation, the Kogi. Some of you may know them that way, the 4 original people of Colombia. And we are very poised now and in service to what the Mother Earth is needing for her healing. She just put out a video that's about 5 minutes long that tells us we've got 2 years to make some choices, some very strong choices here. And when this message first went out, it has really stimulated the world. It's gone viral, and we now have many of our elders that have responded and are coming to stand more in a more unified way with all nations, so that we can let her know we are listening, and we want to put her at the front of what our focus is about, because she's carried, as she says in the video, she's carried the maladies as long as she can. And we continue to put more maladies upon her. And so she cannot let that behavior bring a destruction to her creation. So she's saying, you've got till now to the solstice, and she gave us this message in November. You've got till now to the solstice to really show up and tell me you are listening, and you are going to follow the instructions of our original people and the Kagaba, who we work directly with. She says we must all show up with a resonating sound. And so on the solstice, we have many large social media platforms that are going to be gathering in a song for her, in a prayer for her, to let her know we have listened and we are here. And I have many people now that I'm working with that are heads of organizations and movements and philanthropists that have all heard her call and are showing up in a big way to bring the resources to fill what I call the mother pond, so that when she needs something, the resource will already be there, and we can dip and send. Then we really will have turned the table of economy on it back up on the right side of itself, so that all life is seen as economy, that all of us have a currency we bring to that table. We're all sacred and valued individuals. We're all are representing lines back to our ancestors, and we all have heard a call. And this storytelling, it's part of that medicine. It's part of that medicine.
There's so much that I want to respond to. There's so many threads that you just wove. And one of them I want to pick up is this, this healing, the get culture, this capitalistic culture where, there's, I'm going to get that. And, I just, I just had a bridge burn between me and some very good people, who wanted to know if I could come in to talk to their entrepreneurs because they use this language. They wanted to use a story to get people to sign up for what they were doing. And I was like, I don't use stories. We don't use stories, go back to the etymology of use, and that will take you on a journey. Um, and we don't, and like to engage story in that way, it actually goes against the cycle of life, that stories, they give, and then that listener receives. And when the listener receives, they give back to the storyteller, and the story, and they feed the story, and the story keeps giving. And that's the nature of life. So it's like, if you want your people to learn how to give a gift through their story, and if there's a resonance that calls people to their gift, and great. But if not, and she was like, no, never mind. And I was like, okay. And it's like, but we have so many of our stories have been harnessed and enslaved. This, like, the technology of story has been, so challenged right now. And I loved what you began with, that there's a story that's resonating, yearning to come through us. I love also hearing how you speak about Earth, that she has her own voice, and she is, a being amongst us that speaks through our stories. And I know that you said that and Joseph Campbell said too, listen for the new myths, you're going to keep being born. And I hear you saying, we've got new stories, and I'm feeling those new stories too coming in. And I'd love to hear what stories you are playing with right now.
Well, I started by sharing about this video that went out, because um, a couple of years ago, we've been working in Colombia with the four mamos and with the four original people and their mamos. And their mamos, just so you know a little bit more about them, that I can introduce you, they are, when they're caught at birth, they're seen as human beings that have come with a seed of consciousness inside that can fully open. And so they are caught at birth and they're taken to the caves, and they do not see the light of day until they're 9 years old. And they're 9 years old, they are put through a set of exams, if you will, to see if that consciousness has fully opened. And if it hasn't, they go back into the caves until they're 18. And I've worked with some that were in the caves for 28 years. So you can imagine that these are individuals that have lived in the womb of the earth, that have been absorbed in that intelligence and consciousness to be this vehicle of service for her, and a conduit, if you will, to carry her story further, so that we that are ready to listen can hear and catch and be a part and in service to that story. And so that's the ones that brought this message. People immediately went to that Western colonized way of thinking that you just described, and they immediately wanted to know, well, who was it? Who was the individual? Who was this? And they set another message behind the video, and you can go to my website at thefountain.earth, and you can see Mother's message, and you can watch this video for yourself. And you can also see the message that followed after it, which explained that it came from the source of the heart of the earth. They're the ones that were asked to gather it and bring it out for her. And then they ask us to put it in a form of video for that message to go first to COP28. So these world leaders that were meeting in Dubai could really listen, that she is at a critical moment and she cannot wait any longer. And she's been trying to, but we've pushed her to that point. And then it was to flow around the world. And so in 2013, I went down to Colombia. I was invited with there was about 100 of us that were most of indigenous elders from around the planet, but all nations were represented there. And the eagle condor prophecy is something that's about this awakening story. And many, many nations care for different parts of that prophecy. The Kogi let us know in 2013 that this prophecy was opening up the next part of its story, and that we were about to enter into 13 years of a great, great cleanse. Now we're in the last 2 years of that 13 years, because they said the ending would fall into the beginning in 2026. And that It was important to watch the ending as it fell down because it would keep us informed, but to stay focused on those that were carrying it through and into the new dawn. And some of what that means is that the earth travels through 26,000-year cycles as she expands and continues to develop her own evolutionary consciousness, you see. And so we're finishing up a 26,000-year cycle. This is her sixth extinction. It means she's been through this 5 times before. The big difference this time is we as human beings are part of the choicing moment to enter into this next 26,000-year cycle. I like to share that because then people can step away from needing to blame somebody for what went wrong and dividing us instead of unifying us, because it's just cycle of life. There's birth, there's a cycle of life and how it flows, and then there's a death process before it opens to the next birthing process. And so life moves and evolves, and now she's moving from her lower chakras and for the first time opening fully into the consciousness of heart. And this has been prophesied by many nations, many nations, not just the indigenous nations, but many spiritual paths carry these same stories of prophecy for this moment of time that we're sitting in right now. And we must wake to ourselves, or we won't go into the new dawn with her as a human species. You know, we will have chosen something else because all form goes on in one way or the other. But this is the moment that I believe those that are in circles like this one they already know we're in that kind of moment, you know, and we've been saying for decades now, and the indigenous have been saying longer than that, been telling us, get ready for this moment, get ready for this moment. Now we are looking at climate change and we're starting to see that there is a moment. There are thousands of tornadoes hitting the Midwest here in the North American Turtle Island right now. Unprecedented. Many volcanoes going off. There are earthquakes occurring in areas that have never had earthquakes before. What that tells us is the mother is in movement. That's how the elders speak about it. She has begun her movement. And if we can say yes to her, and what does that mean? People say, well, what can I do? So, well, every single one of us has a cord of understanding from our own family lineage and from our own personal work that we have come to stand in this moment with. Light yourself up as light and bright as you can, right there in the middle of your family system, right there in the middle of your community, right there in the middle of your village, of your global work, whatever it is, light yourself up fully. Because as we do that, as all of those that are ready for that moment do that, all of a sudden that radiance begins to mingle into the oneness of who we are. And that's the story we're all in right now. That is our story that we're all sharing together in this poignant moment. You know, so right now, she has told us in these last 2 years what the prescription is of that cleansing. If you go back and look at since 2013, we didn't know what that meant when they told us that at first. You many times don't know when something means when it comes to you, a live prophecy like this, a live part of a prophecy. And the way they describe prophecy is as one way, because it's a very deep topic. But one way is that it has prepared us for this moment, and now it is instructing us in this moment. So it's a live story, and it has an intelligence all of its own.
I so love that. And the prophecy stories that I know as I begin to listen to them and for them is that they speak through the language of story, of like symbol and metaphor and archetype. And to really be with a prophecy story is not to get not that you're doing this. I'm speaking for our storied people, you know, to understand that there's more than the literal, that
Right.
they'll speak in so many ways, and that they're often offering a backdoor, I call it like the trap door into another paradigm, another archetypal structure of understanding what's possible. They'll open doorways. And so many times I feel like the prophecies that I was raised with, end of the world prophecies, but I love how Michael Meade brings into that apocalypse, which has been a word that's been hijacked,
Mhm.
to mean the end of the world. When we go to the etymology, the word speaks truth of what it means, which is it's the lifting of the veils, meaning we get to see what's been there all along. So we should be celebrating that we're in apocalyptic times, because wow, now we get to be so in more alignment with a multidimensional reality of what we're in. This is so exciting, but it's just like a slight reverberation on understanding like that so many of our words have been hijacked. They're being used against us. Our stories are being used against us. And when I so appreciate this deep listening that you're calling for, that when we really listen, these new opportunities, these new ways are coming forward. And I really heard you saying it's time to brighten up. It's like
Yeah.
light the lighthouse.
And it's also exactly what you're saying, this moment of truth. When
Mhm.
the light goes on, we see ourselves. Oh, the light's on,
And
and we're
nobody said it would be pretty.
and we're light beings, and all of a sudden we can see how, wow, something happened. There was a colonization, a movement of colonization that moved from the late 1400s and began to move across the planet. And it marginalized those that were the caretakers of the planet. It marginalized and cut us from nature. And when it cut us off from our mother nature, then we lost something in our way of instruction, if you will. And so as we marched, we colonized. That Western model began to colonize, and it began to make, because it was cut from nature and the understanding that we're part of nature, it began to assume itself as Lord over nature. It began to posture itself in a way that it was about extraction, what we can get, like you were talking about earlier, what we can get from something. Even if you go to meditation practices, I will start to speak with people and say, you need to leave your what get outside. Come and sit and just open yourself to whatever creator wants to bring to you in this moment, and trust that exactly what your own alchemical process needs will come to you. Embrace it, embody it, then take the next step. So staying in this present moment is really a significant spiritual practice for everyone to utilize right now. Because I had a home in the Amazon jungle for over 22 years, and they would call the people of the West the termite people, because they eat everything up, because we were consumers. We were told that being good consumers was very important. It would help everybody, but it eats everything up. And so that's that colonized embrace that locked us into a box and kept us from the nature of who we are. Now that we're starting to restore and repair and heal that connection and reconnect with the relationship of our mother, that she's a loving mother and a patient mother, and she's provided everything we have, from what we have with our clothes to our food to our bodies, everything that we have. And her sacred sites on her body, they're like acupuncture points. So if you can imagine, if your body had all the major acupuncture points blocked in your body, how would you be feeling? Uh-huh. So that's the point, It's like that got really live for me when all of a sudden all of this happened with this with Floyd, and I can't breathe. All of a sudden that mantra of I can't breathe was repeated in huge crowds. I believe if you were to take that as a moment of looking in the mirror, the Mother Earth was saying to you very loudly, I can't breathe. Get your knee off my neck. I can't breathe. So if we really listen and reconnect and restore that union, then we are already in a different current with life. and it's going to carry us. It's going to carry us. But we have to let go, as the Hopi said in some of their prophecy, we have to let go of the shore. And when we look around in the river of life that's carrying us, we're going to notice people we recognize. And we've all surrendered to the river. We've all let go. And she's carrying us to our next dimension. She's carrying us to a higher dimension of life and understanding and perception of life that's we can't even imagine, you know, we can't even imagine.
You know, that moment with George Floyd, the other piece that I really heard that resonated so loud was the call for mother. I mean, those were his last word. He called for his mother. And that being resonating, I remember that moment being like, wow, I'm really hearing the call for the mother, and the mother in all of us. And what is the archetype of mother, but that being who really knows how to take care of that which she creates, and one of those roles, hearing you talk about the change that's happening on the earth, I kind of loved it for a moment because I was like, it was this like, what if it's not a bad thing that we've got volcanoes and hurricanes and tornadoes and earthquakes, that it's this sign that earth is alive. She's alive. She's kicking. She's moving. She's birthing. She's changing. And
Mhm.
I think one of the things that I've always been curious about, in terms of and I want to talk about the distinction between a narrative and a story,
Mhm.
because we get more truth in story and we get all messed up as humans, I think, when we try to be literal with words. But that, we've somehow in the climate narrative, and I'm not debating the science and that we're in a major situation. So I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page. Like, wow, we're in a situation. But somehow we've cast change as the bad guy in our story. And I'm really curious about that, because what happens to us when we're consistently saying that change is bad, when now more than ever, like, I feel like the earth is pleading with us to change our ways, and like, how can we restory ourselves so that that change is the blessing, that yes, she's cracking open because no more, she can't stand still for what's happening any longer. Yes, she's burning through the story of ownership, because you can't maintain that much stagnant stuck, and I want to be sensitive while I say this, because people I know and love have lost homes. People I know and love have been extremely traumatized by major events and climate. My hometown of Topanga has been completely shut down, not completely, but like, as are really heavily impacted because of a mudslide that can't be repaired.
Right.
you know so it's like, this is, I want to be tender as I say this, that we operate in our human realms, which is like really dealing with Excel spreadsheets and the realities of that kind of world, while also there's a soul story that is living itself through us.
Well, it's like we're in the middle of a revolution of evolution.
I love that.
No, the evolution isn't personal. It's not personal. In fact, my elders started telling me this over 20 years ago. Don't get personal. The moment you get personal, you're lost in a story that is not the story. And so that was really good instruction. It helped me a lot. And to understand too is that, evolution isn't personal. It's just it's life in motion. It's life expanding and growing itself. And when each and every one of us is ready for that new growth, then we open. I remember I wish I could remember which book I read this in, because I really like to honor all things I say to the author of them. But it was such a poignant one, I can't keep repeating it. It says, when consciousness is ready to hold its own numinosity, then and only then does it awaken, which gave me liberation, because when I could let go that I needed to try to wake people up, that I couldn't do that. That was a false pride moment, if I'm really being honest with myself, because evolution isn't personal and I can't save the world. One of my friends that's a amazing healer said Spirit came to her at one point and said, quit trying to save the world, change the world, save the world. I'll take care of that. You take care of that which I bring you.
Hmm.
And it simplifies ourselves. It helps us get over ourselves so that we can be more humble in our approach with ourselves and with others. You know, that's what I've come to know over the years. And so if that resonates for you, then, you know, you take a moment and you just let go of all this stuff you're put on ourselves, attention. You know, it was like when we went to the Arctic Circle with the Mamos, and they presented a message to the full Arctic Circle assembly there. There were over 3,000 world leaders and people of initiatives and work they're doing to try to work with the earth, but there was a lot of talk about climate change. And now the Mamos, first time out of Columbia, first time in an airplane, first time in elevators, are moving stairs, and moving through a sea of many languages. So you can imagine, we get home after that first day that way, and we're sitting at our dinner table, and they said to me, we hadn't talked about it at all yet, and they said to me, so Jyoti, why do they keep talking about the earth is heating up, the earth is heating up? Don't they understand that they are putting more wood on that fire? They need to plant the seed deep in the earth. It will cool things. So this is some of the wisdom that comes, you know, when you just sit with your elders. It's like what you're talking about, storytelling, the traditional storytelling. When you come and sit with elders during a moment like this, there's codes in the stories. There's transmissions coming through that elder and the way she's presenting you with this story. It's a moment. It's a moment. We're about to have a storytelling festival in New York, which you know about, and I know you're going to share more about, but they say when the storytellers are coming, someone always runs ahead and says, the storytellers are coming. The storytellers are coming. So I'm kind of one of those people right now that's doing that, because I'm excited that we're going to be there. And part of our story, our Earth story, is the Mother Earth delegation of United Original Nations was activated by the Mother herself in 2019. And Spirit gave us 3 levels of instruction. The first one was to go to the north and call upon the healers and spiritual leaders there to come sit at the table. We went and called the Sami. Then to go to the south and do the same. And many came from the south to sit at our table. And then to go to the east gate and knock. That's all we know. Last year, we were supposed to hold this storytelling festival, and the waters came so strong into New York, they closed roads, broke up roads, felled trees down. And so Grandma Louisa said, Jyoti, the water spirits are angry. We need to stay home. So we did. But I think it was also part of the new plan. You see, this is that part you can't plan for, because you don't know the design of that larger plan. So when you just go with the river, she brings you surprises. You have to let go of expectation and need for outcome and all these things. But you move along the river. And now she's got us poised to knock on the east gate right in the middle of this period of time when she said we must shout out to her, we are listening. Did I plan that? Oh, I couldn't plan that. I couldn't plan that. I bet if you look at some of the instruction times that you have with your story circles, your storytellers that are here, you didn't plan it, but all of a sudden when you're opening up that day, you realize, oh my gosh, it's a full moon and they're saying da 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 da. The cosmos are dancing with you, because you see, Mother Earth has a family. She has the moon and the sun and the stars and the cosmos. She's dancing with her family, constantly in motion, because life is always in motion. When we first started our community, she said to us a couple of things. First, the key to the magic kingdom is just show up. That sounded so simple, but it is a work to bring your full presence and show up. You know, she also let us know that she said the reality that this waking reality that we're living and working in right now, it is always changing form. It is its nature. She said, stay close to that which brought the form and you'll be okay. Stay close to that which brought the form and you'll be okay. So we had to learn over and over in our community how to let go of structure, how to let go of systems that we had created to help us hold this, how not to hold on to the shore, how to let go and let the river of life bring us into full story.
Mm, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. That this piece around getting a transmission through a story. It's like it's the unspeakable thing that happens, right? And it's I won't even speak about it, but I remember you mentioned that you might have a story that you could share with us. I think you have enough time.
Well, I think this story it came to me, it had all stories have lives and their energy, their entities, their beings. And this story came because I lived in Texas where the bluebonnets come. And I remember years and years ago, it's probably 50 years ago now or more, when I was driving down the highway there, and all of us, the bluebonnets were there. And all of a sudden, I couldn't see anything else but bluebonnets. As far as the eye would go, there were bluebonnets. So I had to literally come off and stop my car so I could take a moment and be with this significance. And I remember a sense of oneness occurring because of the bluebonnets. It was many years later that I would understand that there was a story, a traditional story around the bluebonnets. And I'm just going to kind of bring it into my own words. So I want to not do dishonor to that original story. But I think it's a story of our times. You see, there was this village and there was a drought like never they had ever experienced before. There had been no water for so long. Crops were dying. People were dying. Cows and their animals, their livestock, the ways that they fed and nurtured themselves, they were laying down. They were dying. There was no water. The chief of the village had tried many things. He had gotten people to come here or there. And from his own teachings and wisdom, he had tried this and that, but the drought was firm and hard and it had a hold and it wouldn't let go. Finally, the chief got word that there was a rainmaker. Now, this rainmaker lived some distance away, and it was going to be a pilgrimage just to get to the rainmaker. When you have no water, you have to travel so far and so long. He wondered if he could make it, but he was committed and he was totally devoted to his village and his people and to the land herself, who was also thirsty, you see. So he went on his pilgrimage. He met with the rainmaker. The rainmaker said, yes, I will come. I will come to help you. I'm being called there. I will come. So that he brought him back. Once they got there, they went up to this tall hill that was, where the village could see the top of this hill from all the little different huts that they lived in. He built this huge bonfire. And he said to the people, I'm about to ignite this sacred fire. And I'm lighting it now as the sun is going down. And throughout the night, you must go now and sit with yourself. And you must allow yourself to pick the most precious thing you have to put in this fire. And then the rain will come. So he lit the fire. The night came. People went back into their own little huts. They were all trying to decide what was the most precious thing I have that I can put in this sacred fire. One would say, oh, I know. I have my moccasins. I have prayed. I've been in ceremony. they have so much of the prayer of who I am in them. This is the most precious. But then something would come and say, oh yeah, but they kind of got a hole in it over there and they're extremely worn. I got some new moccasins. Oh, that's what Creator will want. I'll put those new moccasins in the fire. Another would say, oh, I know. My great-great-grandmother, she gave me her prayer shawl, and I've been wearing it, as most of my family has, to sit behind that water, to make that holy prayer for our people. That's what I need to give to the great-grandfather fire tonight. And something would take over. Oh, but and I looked at it and I start to go. It's torn. It's got holes in it. It's worn. I know several years ago, I got this beautiful shawl that was given to me. It's very holy. It was given to me by a holy person. That's the one I'll put in the fire. And so it went through the village. In one of the huts, there was this little girl. She was about 6 years old. And she was sitting there watching the fire. She was sitting there watching people go one at a time, taking the fire. And she had this little doll in her arms and had blue bonnet on. And her mom and dad had died several years before. And the last thing they had given her was this doll with the blue bonnet. And it was precious to her. It was the last time she brought a memory of what happened that day when that doll came to her. That her mom and dad, who she loved so much and had died in this horrible way, they were still in this little doll. She could talk to this doll when she had trouble. When she was scared at night, she could grab her doll and she would feel comfort and warmth in herself, knowing that her parents were right there watching after her still in this way. Oh, all night long, she rocked and she talked to this doll, and she was really in this place. She didn't know what to do. Finally, she said to herself, but you do know what to do. This is the most precious thing you have. It is what the fire is calling for. With little tears rolling down her cheek, she walked out of her hut. Now the night is almost past and most are sleeping. No one really saw her. No one knew what she would do. But she walked with an intention in her walk. She loved her people. She loved her earth. She knew that she needed to give this most precious gift to this grandfather fire. So the water would come and it would take care of everything. So she went up to the fire and she said her last goodbyes to this precious, precious doll. Then with her last bit of courage, she took that doll and she kissed it and slowly placed it in the fire of life. And then she walked back to her hut and she laid down and she fell asleep. A little while went by and all of a sudden she was awakened by joyous singing and dancing. And she stepped outside her hut and it was raining. It was raining and everybody was celebrating. And then all of a sudden, she saw there were blue bonnets everywhere as far as the eye could see. This is this moment of choice we're in right now.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And maybe for those who are listening, there's that process of called feeding a story where we talk back to the story. And if you want to just place into the chat box what you received or how that story is speaking to you, we would definitely love to receive that. And I know, Jyoti, you're going to have to leave soon. So I want to give us some ample time just to speak about all the different ways that things that you're doing that we can engage with, things that you're doing involved with the School for Sacred Storytelling, There's the New York Indigenous Storytelling Festival, which blessed be the waters have cleared, the roads are alive and well, and people can make their way to you. Can you tell us a little bit about this? And I'm just curious, is there also an online version if people can't make it to New York? Is it only in person? Yeah, how can
Okay.
we support you even if we can't be there in person?
This is one of those moments where you can, whether you can be there or not, you can flip that switch. Yes, mother, I am listening.
Mhm.
And you can go to my website called thefountain.earth.
And I'll put links to all of this in our
Okay,
replay email so we don't have
great,
to, yeah.
great. You can also go to centerforsacredstudies.org. In both places, there's a storytelling button. And you can push that button in order to register. We've tried to make it so we're holding everything as a donation to her and to the elders that are helping serve her right now. As the Mother Earth delegation is. They're hosting it. Pachamama Alliance has joined and is sponsoring us as well. And it's going to be from May 31st till June the 2nd. Starts at noon on the 31st and goes to a little past noon on the 2nd. We will have some of the Mohawk youth are going to do their traditional way and ceremony to bring us into their country and to help light that first sacred fire, because we'll have a fire going all day long while these stories are going, so that grandfather can inform us and be fed by the story and those there joined in the story. You can go online and register and pick what works for you. I think 250 is the asking, but we've got it worked out so that you can give what you want to. If you can't come, we are going to be filming the storytellers so that those that register will get those stories later. And yeah, we've got some of our elders from Turtle Island that are coming. We've got Grandma Louisa Tish and her friend Mama Edie. They're quite amazing storytellers, all in their own right, representing different traditional ways. We've got Kota Kindi coming from Ecuador. We've got Elen who does Yorking. She's one of the Sami. If you haven't heard anybody York, oh my gosh, it's the earth sings through them and you feel it in every cell of your body. So bring your family and friends and join us in this moment of knocking at the gate of the East. It is through that East gate, they say, that everything flows into Turtle Island and across her. So that's the honoring that we're about to do.
That sounds so amazing. And you're on the East Coast or you want to travel to the East Coast, it sounds like an extraordinarily unique opportunity to get to come and really receive so many different traditions, so many stories from so many traditions. I don't know of a lot of events like this, so it's like it really does feel like a profound moment and unique offering to get such a transmission of so many different kinds of stories. And Jyoti, you're going to be with us at the School for Sacred Storytelling. You're one of our many guest teachers for the Alchemy of Story, which is a program that many of you know about, but I'll just say it. And I know a couple of you guys are in it, so it's nice to see your faces. And where we're really taking the deepest dive into how are we as storytellers part of the alchemy of this connection of earth and spirit coming alive through us. How is she speaking us alive? How are we dreaming her? How is she dreaming us into being? And that we are doing a repeat of the first module in June 6th through the 9th. So you could do both. You could go to the festival and come to the first module of Story as Ceremony, where you really get to explore what's often not spoken about, which is the energetic, just what Jyoti was saying, that there's a transmission that happens, that where storytelling is about being conductors of energies, not just anything. And so we'll be going into the mysteries of story in that way. And I'll also just make a plug that we also have a monthly membership where we meet 3 times live, once on the new moon, where we do a mystical form of storytelling, which is oracle storytelling, which is where story is divined. But on the full moon, we get to do this co-creation space, and we co-create, we listen for the vision stories of our future. And I have to tell you guys something because this is kind of wild because we've been doing this for a while and it's playful. We get to just listen and see what wants to come through us. And I always say, like, show me a sign that we're on our way. Just show me what it looks like. And I've always felt a little, I don't know, like that's not very dramatic. But I'll often see a coffee shop where everyone brings their own coffee. Like we're no longer as a disposable culture there. That's like my sign that we're getting there. Well, I just saw something on Facebook yesterday, no, today, this morning, that there's a coffee shop in Europe that now refuses to serve paper cups or anything, that the only people they will serve are the people that come with their own mugs. And I was like, oh my gosh, we are, you know, I feel like sometimes this impatience of like, why haven't we got there yet? It's like, come on, folks. It's like let's be gentle with each other. That first we need to hear it, then we need to receive it, then we need to like let it change, and then we can take action. And it's happening. And I really feel this urgency that you're speaking of. We've got 2 years. That's a pretty, short amount of long time to get to put into action all that we're
Yeah.
seeing.
And the UN I just got an article sent to me, and you can Google it. And it's about the UN says we have 2 years. So the scientists have agreed now with the elders.
Mm.
That's kind of a moment all by itself. My elders would say, we've been telling them about this for a long time. I'm glad they're catching up. So may we continue to catch up.
We continue to catch up. Oh,
And I see these chats. There's somebody that was Blue Bonnets was a lullaby that was sung. And grandma used to tell another stories about the Blue Bonnets. So wow, that's yummy too. You send me off today in with my granny heart full and overflowing. And I know you're probably going to stay on and talk some more stories, but thank you for having me. And I'm sorry I have to flow away, but I have people waiting.
I know. Why don't we let everyone just come off mute and send you off in a good fashion with a hoot and a holler and a farewell and a blessing. So if you all want to take yourselves off
I'm going to
and
receive.
say
I got my
goodbye.
hands ready to receive.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Infinite love and God.
You.
Yeah.
Thank you for all the love.
Thank you. Thank you. So much love. You are a blessing and you are a prayer walking. That, I think it was Rumi that said, there's a field beyond right doing and wrongdoing. There's a field. I'll meet you there. Bye.
Wow.
Thank you.
Bye, Jyoti.
Bye-bye.
Oh, what a blessing. What a blessing. What a blessing. I'm going to turn off our recording and